Farid Mohammed, the deceased, 24-year-old at the time of his death, raised together with his sister, Sarah Waithera. He got admitted at Lenana High School before he joined University of Nairobi to study computer science. He was employed as a data analyst immediately after graduation, and quickly rose through ranks. At the time of his death, he was a supervisor. Ruth Kamande, 21-year-old Kenyan woman who stabbed her boyfriend to death. She won Kenya's Prison Beauty Pageant's trophy 2 years after the brutal murder while awaiting trial and judgment. She was sentenced to death in 2018.
I found that the only sentence to pass in this case is death. I'm therefore sentenced the accused person to death as prescribed by the law. She has a right to appeal against the conviction and sentence within 14 days.
When she first made news, her face was covered. Ruth Kamande desperately tried to hide her face with a baggy jumper, as she scurried past a battery of journalists positioned outside Makadara Court, angling to take shots of the femme fatale who had stabbed her boyfriend to death. It was September 24, 2015, 3 days after she was found bathed in blood, knife still in hand, and her boyfriend Farid Mohammed lying lifeless in bed, stabbed 22 times. Witnesses would later tell the court that they heard commotion, followed by Farid's piercing scream, a grunted call for help and a muffled prayer as he breathed his last. One of his neighbor in Buruburu suburbs of Kenya's capital Nairobi, Humphrey Fennessy, was of the people who responded before police came. Humphrey narrated how he broke the window and found Farid screaming, "She has stabbed me again," after which Farid then started praying. Ruth Kamande was still locked inside the room when police arrived. When she cracked the door open, bloody walls, scattered bedding, strewn utensils and a cell phone smashed to pieces told the tragic tale of a love story gone awry. A story that threw Farid's family into mourning, and catapulted Ruth Kamande from the obscurity of a girl brought up in Dandora, another slummy suburb of Nairobi in Kenya, to a star, albeit for wrong reasons. Before the crime, the woman's friends knew her as Biggie, the 21-year-old girl struggling to make ends meet. She was a hairdresser, and made a short stop as a sales agent in one of the telecommunications company where she constantly begged friends for suits to wear to work. Her former colleague at the telecommunication company would describe her as obsessed with looks, and from her humble background, it was difficult for her to buy the many things she desired. According to Farid's sister, Sarah Waithera, Ruth Kamande had another obsession, Mohammed Farid. Sarah narrated the unusual circumstances she met with her. "The first time I met Ruth was when she showed up at my place of work to introduce herself as my brother's girlfriend. I was surprised because she was alone, telling me about her relationship with my brother. Normally, a girl would wait for his boyfriend to take her home and introduce her to his family. Instead, Ruth Kamande took herself and told Farid's sister that she was Farid's girlfriend, and this turned out to be the first red flag Sarah would notice in Ruth. A few months after the unconventional introduction, Ruth Kamande called Sarah. This time, she requested a girl-to-girl conversation about Farid. Upon meeting, she told her that she had realized the love she had for him was unrequited and wanted to do something about it. She told Sarah that she was going to Lebanon and had even booked a flight and was going to work as a house girl, to forget about Farid. Sarah convinced her to stay, citing the many cases of abuse she had heard from the Gulf countries. Ruth Kamande heeded, with a promise to try and forget about Farid and focus on finding a better job in Kenya. In between, he dated other men, but often asked about Farid. It was an obsession, a bad obsession, Sarah would say later about Ruth's love towards her brother. The day of the brutal murder. There are claims Ruth Kamande was infuriated by Farid's plans to marry another woman. She reportedly went to his house and started ransacking for evidence. She got a stack of letters that Farid's old flame, a girl he knew in high school, had written. She told him to break up with her. The girl had moved to USA and they were just friends who reconnected on Facebook, but Ruth Kamande was suspicious. Phone records revealed that Farid made calls minutes before he was murdered. Sarah's pain towards her brother's death was vivid. That death changed everything for our family. He was planning so many things, and things were finally looking up. Their upbringing was rough. She recalls a childhood of domestic violence, and after their mother died, things became more difficult. Through it all, Farid excelled. He got admitted at Lenana High School before he joined University of Nairobi to study computer science. He was employed as a data analyst immediately after graduation, and quickly rose through ranks. At the time of his death, he was a supervisor. His name faded soon after his brutal death, only getting occasional mention when Ruth Kamande made news. She has dominated news, from the day she walked timidly to the docks, to when she struck again. This time, she was wearing a crown, carrying a bouquet of flowers, and posing seductively for the cameras. She had just won the Miss Langata prison pageant, and her photos were trending on social media. One Facebook user by the name Bruce commented and said, "Oh my goodness. Come and kill me too." The comments that trickled after the first photo was posted leaned on objectifying her looks, her crime somehow forgotten until Justice Jessie Lesit found her guilty of murder on
2017.
While at the prison, apart from being crowned prison beauty pageant, Kamande is a beneficiary of a program run by the African Prisons Project, a charity organization active in Kenya and Uganda, which brings dignity and hope to prison communities in Africa, through transferring of useful skills to prisoners and prison wardens. I am in a good position to draft cross-examination questions, defenses, submissions and even mitigations, Kamande writes in a testimonial on the APP website.
My name is Kamande Ruth, and I am a trained paralegal under the APP. Through the legal aid knowledge that I have acquired from the APP staff, I am able to stand in court confidently, and I am able to present myself in court. I've also been able to present and to help the inmates with their cases, and I've had so many success stories, which I am really grateful and thankful.
Ruth Kamande death sentence. The courtroom play was intriguing. Ruth Kamande confessed stabbing Farid, but insisted it was in self-defense. She claimed she had just discovered Farid was HIV positive after stumbling on his hospital card. Farid told me he would rather kill me and himself than have his status exposed. I stabbed him several times using a kitchen knife, which fell on my chest from his hands after I overpowered him after putting my 2 thumbs in his eyes to save my life, she said. She also claimed the previous night, Farid raped her. Delivering the ruling, Justice Jessie Lesit said that the number of stabs on the deceased did not support her claims of self-defense. The judge said Ruth did not have remorse while butchering Mr. Mohammed. She stabbed the deceased 25 times, and not in quick succession but rather spaced out as if savoring it in pleasure. Doctors also ruled out the possibility of rape.
After considering all these factors, I found that the only sentence to pass in this case is death, and therefore sentenced the accused person to death as prescribed by the law. She has a right to appeal against the conviction and sentenced within 14 days.
Sarah, who attended all the court sessions, says the extensive coverage on Ruth Kamande's beauty and charm overshadowed Farid and caused them pain. In retrospect, she appreciates the huge coverage the case got and that his brother finally received justice. According to Farid's auntie, Farid was raised by their extended family and his death was a blow to many people. Expressing happiness for the judge's verdict that Ruth had to hang for her crime, Farid's aunt said that she did what she wanted to do, just destroy him. Even when they were asking her at the window, stop, she did not stop. And even if she stopped, she continued again, as the judge mentioned. The Amnesty International indulgence. The Amnesty International denounced the judgment, terming it as inhuman sentence. The head of the human rights non-governmental organization said that this sentence is a blow to Kenya's progressive record in commuting death sentences to terms of imprisonment. There isn't any credible evidence that the death penalty deters crime any better than other lawful punishments. This death sentence must be commuted immediately and Ruth Kamande rehabilitated. It is important to note that Ruth Kamande, although sentenced to death, will never be killed by the state but will instead serve life in prison. There has been no execution in Kenya since the 1987 hanging of Kenya Air Force Senior Private Hezekiah Ochuka, Pancras Oteo Okumu and 2 others who were found guilty of treason for trying to overthrow the government. In fact, Kenya has no serving hangman. The last one, Kirigumi W.A. Wanjiku, who served in committee, died of pneumonia in Abardez in 2009 at the age of 86. Death row convicts serve in jail, hoping for the commutation of their sentences to life by the president through the power of mercy. Some convicts have even been released after serving for some years. The power of mercy is invoked as provided for by Article 133 of the Constitution. Do you think Ruth Kamande deserved a death sentence for brutally stabbing her boyfriend to death, or the judge would have been more lenient? Let us know in the comment section. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more dark, strange and mysterious stories that actually happened around the world.